A strong argument can be made that user experience design, or UX, should be considered when designing customer experience programs. But my guest says we haven't come far enough.
I really haven't seen much connection between UX and CX out there in organizations. But that's one thing that has really surprised me, that this really just hasn't gelled as much as I thought it would.
The importance of human-centered design and trends to look forward to on this episode of the CX Leader Podcast.
The CX Leader Podcast with Steve Walker is produced by Walker, a business consulting firm that helps our clients unlock the potential of their customer experiences by placing the customer at the heart of all their business decisions. You can find out more at walkerinfo.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Steve Walker, Chairman and CEO of Walker Information, and also the host of the CX Leader Podcast, and thank you for listening. Here on the CX Leader Podcast, we explore topics and themes to help leaders like you leverage all the benefits of customer experience and help your customers and prospects want to do more business with you. I have had a wonderful time these past several weeks talking to various professionals about their careers and how they became CX experts. And today will be our 9th interview with a luminary in the customer experience world. On her company's website, today's guest boasts the use of over 60,000 sticky notes to cover over 100 journeys. And if you're a true CX pro, you know what it's all about. Kerry Bodine is the founder of Kerry Bodine and Company, a consulting firm that works with executives to co-create innovative products, services, and experiences that can define their company's future. Her book, Outside In, The Power of Putting Customers at the Center of Your Business, helps business leaders understand the financial benefits of great customer experience and how their organizations must change in order to deliver them. Kerry will be joining me today via Zoom. Kerry, thanks for being on the CX Leader Podcast.
Hello there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Now, you've already warned us that you got the outside in today and that we might hear some background noise.
Yeah, I live right in San Francisco and on a semi-busy street with some trolley cars that might come by and ring their bells in the background. Oh, there you go. I don't know if you heard that or not,
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, for probably 2/3 of the rest of the country, we're a little jealous today because here in the middle of the country, it is gray and snow flurries and sub-freezing temperatures. So we all wish we were in San Francisco today.
I do count my blessings. It's a great place to live.
Kerry, I've known you a long time, and you're obviously a luminary in this business, a real rock star in the industry. But just for some of our listeners who may be a little newer to the profession, give us a quick background on your career and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, sure. So I actually started out as a user experience designer and a web developer. I started designing and developing websites back in the mid-90s. I think I developed what was the world's first social shopping application. It was just a prototype that I hacked together, but back in the days where you only had one phone line going into the house, we were kind of thinking about the future of what it might look like to talk on the phone and shop with someone at the same time. So yeah, my experience dates back to that, and obviously, I caught the bug early, thinking about how to make technology easier to use. And my career really evolved, especially after I joined Forrester Research as an analyst there, from looking at how to make technology easier to use to looking at how to make organizations easier to do business with. And so that's really what I focus on now. I've had my own company for about 5 years, and actually about 5 years exactly, kind of exciting. And
Congratulations.
so, yeah, really all about helping organizations understand their customers' needs and expectations, and this is really what drives me. I mean, even going back to my early days of web development and web design, it was about how to remove that frustration, how to make people happier when they're trying to just do something, accomplish some goal or task in their life. So that's really what I've focused my career on, and what makes me really excited to get up and go to work in the morning.
So you came out of the technology side of the business.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and, I think actually, just listening to you talk there, I bet you customer experience came out of the user experience because prior to that, we used to call it customer satisfaction, customer loyalty. And then this user experience was sort of a separate thing. And now, with the evolution of technology and omni-channel activity, it's all sort of blended together. But so you were there right at the start of the internet part of being the customer experience.
Yeah, and something that's really interesting to me is, for me, it was a really natural evolution to go from thinking about, designing a website to help people accomplish their tasks, to looking more broadly at, an IVR system or a conversation that's happening over the phone or in a retail location. Truly looking at all of those different channels, and then from there, looking at, not just how you design those interactions, but understanding that you need to design the organizations that are supporting those interactions as well. And so again, it's been a really natural evolution in my own career. And the interesting thing to me is that I really haven't seen much connection between UX and CX out there in organizations. They really often operate as completely different functions within organizations. They often don't know about each other's work. I actually give quite a few speeches every year to groups of UX designers and developers at various conferences, talking to them about what the heck customer experience is. And I typically throw in some service design for good measure, because to me, it's kind of the bridge discipline between user experience and customer experience. But that's one thing that has really surprised me over the course of my career, and especially the last decade, that this really just hasn't gelled as much as I thought it would, but between these different disciplines.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective coming from somebody like you. I just had a guest on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about, when I first got in the business, the impact of the digital experience wasn't even a factor because it did not exist, really.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then, just in the course of my career, now it is arguably, one of the most important elements of a customer's experience, depending on what you're trying to do or what you're purchasing or what you're experiencing. So to hear
Yeah.
you say that you don't think that we've made as much progress on the integration between that is kind of fascinating to me. I would have thought that you would think that there'd been more progress made.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I see the need for those connections, and I think that there are people within organizations who are obviously looking at the bridges between digital and non-digital channels. But I know one person. I will keep this anonymous, but it's someone who worked heading up web design at I'll say more broadly user experience design at one of the big tech companies here in Silicon Valley. And I was talking to him one day and asking him, about whether or not he talks with the call center and this and that. He's like, no, why would I talk to the call center? So it has been really surprising to me. And it's one of these things you kind of forget what you already know. I see the connections and the need for it, but that doesn't mean that that's how it's working in reality across organizations.
What about some of the other trends or things that you've seen over the course of your career? What stands out to you in terms of where we've really made a lot of progress, and then alternatively, what are things that maybe we still got a lot of work to do on?
Yeah, I would say we've made a lot of progress in understanding the value of human-centered design. This is something that has gone from a discipline that was very misunderstood, shrouded in lots of misperceptions about what design is and is not. To me, human-centered design is just another way to solve people's problems, and it's got both a mindset and a methodology that are embedded in it. But it's really not anything that you need a special degree for or any kind of special artistic abilities for. I consider myself a really great designer, and I consider myself a terrible artist.
Yeah.
If you had me draw a horse right now, it would probably look like stick animal of some sort, but maybe a horse and maybe not. Um, but design as a business tool and a problem solving method, I think, has really started to take hold. Again, service design as a specialized area of human centered design that is focused on what, as it sounds, intangible services, which to me really equate almost directly to experiences. And so there's a whole field of service design that has emerged over the last decade and really become more prominent. Certainly here in the U.S., it kind of started in Europe and has gained more prominence here in the U.S. over the last several years. But I think design as a tool for and again, in a mindset for understanding customers' needs and then developing solutions and experiences that are truly going to meet their needs is really one of the key advances in customer experience over the last decade.
My guest this week is Kerry Bodine, the founder of Kerry Bodine and Company. She is a longtime expert in the CX field, and we're having a great discussion here as we continue our Luminaries series here early in 2019. Kerry, our audience tends to be CX professionals or maybe more senior executives of firms that don't have a dedicated CX effort. When you think about the CX leaders that you've worked with, what sticks out in terms of what kind of adjustments they've had to make, or what are the most important characteristics for a CX leader today?
In terms of adjustments, I think that speaking the customer experience language is definitely one. There's a whole language, a whole nomenclature that goes around the discipline of customer experience. And so, as people came into customer experience roles, really kind of learning that, I think was one important adjustment. But kind of hand in hand with that goes the need to be able to translate that nomenclature. And I'm talking about things like net promoter score or any of the other kind of buzzwords that go along, voice of the customer, those types of things. But being able to translate that to the rest of the organization. And when I think about the most important qualities, I'd say that there are two that really stick out to me in people that have been successful as customer experience leaders. The first is the ability to really create meaningful relationships across the organization. I remember working with a guy, and every time I saw him, he was sitting in someone's office with his feet up. The offices all had couches in them, and he was sitting in someone's office with his feet on the couch, and he was just chatting away. And I always wondered, like, what the heck is this guy doing? He's just sitting around and talking all day long. When does he actually do any work? But what I learned very quickly was that he was out there building relationships. And sometimes he was just, chit-chatting, and sometimes he was talking about projects and whatever, but he was really building relationships across all the different functions of the organization that we worked in. And I think that's key because ultimately, customer experience professionals don't have masses of people that report to them that they can just tell what to do and expect them to go do it because their boss said so. Customer experience professionals are influencers, and so they've got to win the hearts and minds of the people who need to go out and actually make change in all of the various parts of the organization. You've got to be building strong relationships across the executive team and across, the next layers down in terms of the management structure that's going to be necessary to buy into the CX changes. And then that kind of feeds into the second important trait, and that is the ability to make a really strong business case. And I'd be shocked if your other guests haven't mentioned this, because when when customer experience started out, there was a perception that it was kind of this fluffy, intangible thing, and it was hard to relate to the metrics of the organization, and especially the financial metrics. But that's something that the most successful CX practitioners and leaders are doing, is they're making solid business cases to prove the value of their work.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that your characterization is very consistent. We did a series last year on the top 10 traits of an effective CX leader, and you hit a couple of them right on the head. I think the concept that the CX leaders typically don't have a lot of formal authority means that they have to be really savvy operators inside the company. So.
Yeah, and if they don't make that business case, then they are really vulnerable to being on the chopping block. And I think that's the sad thing that I have seen over my tenure in the CX industry, is way too many CX leaders and even complete CX teams being dismantled because someone in some decision making position didn't understand the business value of the work that they were doing.
And it's also imperative that we as professionals keep making that business case, which is why you highlighted that as your second characteristic there. So,
yep.
I know you're working on something new that I found fascinating. I think most of our listeners have probably heard of journey maps, and I know that's been a passion of yours, but you're kind of going and taking that to the next level. You want to tease our audience a little bit with kind of where your head is at in terms of the journey?
Sure. Well, the point of journey maps is not to create journey maps.
That's right.
The point of journey maps is to understand the customer's needs so we can drive change within the organization and therefore reap all of the business benefits that are associated with a great customer experience. And so ultimately, we've got to create maps that are effective at driving change. And that's one thing that we can do in terms of really refining the ways that we are developing maps and the types of information that are included in them. But what I'm looking at is going even beyond that and looking at journey management as an entirely new emerging discipline. So I've been looking specifically at this role of journey managers. If you do a LinkedIn search right now on journey managers, I haven't done it since I've been back from my winter holiday break, but back in December, there was something like, I'm going to say 1.6 or 1.7 million product managers out there and about 1,200 journey managers. So very few of these people compared with a really established field like product management. But I think product management is actually a fantastic model in terms of the discipline that I think we need to bring to customer experience and specifically to journeys. So no company out there right now in its right mind that's serious about having profitable products or services would forgo a product management role. And from my standpoint, it just goes to reason that if we're serious about customer experience and truly believe in the business benefits of customer experience, we need to be dedicating the same level of oversight to the experience that we do to products. And the very natural kind of unit that we can look at to manage is the journey. It's great because journey, of course, is cross-functional. It aligns with tasks and goals that people have. And so for me, it really makes sense as kind of the fundamental unit that we need to manage and then, of course, measure in order to truly make customer experience a managed discipline across the organization. I think it also takes the burden off of customer experience professionals a bit. I think there will be a continued role for customer experience professionals long into the future because there are just some centralized functions that make sense for them to own. But we have to, if we're serious about customer experience, we have to find ways to decentralize that customer experience management as well. And I think journey management and the role of journey managers is really key to that.
Yeah, you've got me fascinated on this topic, and I think you articulate a really strong case for that. I think, just the fact that there's a, 1.6 million or 1.7 million product managers, and we know how few things are being sold just based on the tangible elements of a purchase, so the journey manager and the journey management function really resonates with me. So I'm excited to see where you'll take that.
Oh yeah, lots more to come in 2019.
Kerry, we've really enjoyed having you on the program, but I can't let you go without the hallmark of the CX Leader podcast, and that is our segment on take-home value. So, Kerry Bodine, as a luminary in this profession, what is the one or two tips you would give to our listeners today that could help them improve their performance around their customer experience expertise?
Well, I wouldn't be true to my first love of design if I didn't mention that. So if human-centered design or service design are new terms, new ideas to you, I'd really encourage you to go out there and take a look and really just start to learn about that. There's tons of resources out there on human-centered design and service design, conferences that you can go to if you want to invest even more time in that, or training courses. And then again, journey management. I think that this is something that every organization needs to start looking at sooner rather than later. And those who leave it to later are definitely going to be behind. So the first step here is really to think about what journeys warrant management, because there are lots of journeys that your customers have with your organization. Not all journeys are created equal. Some of them probably require ongoing oversight, and others may not. So start to identify 2 or 3 journeys that are both really important to your customers and also really important to driving results for your business.
Kerry Bodine is the founder of Kerry Bodine and Company. And Kerry, if folks want to learn a little bit more, you want to give some contact information or your website?
Absolutely. It's kerrybodine.com, KerryBodine. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kerry Bodine.
Thanks again, Kerry, for joining us on the podcast. It's been delightful having you on the program.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much. And happy 2019, everyone.
Thank you. And if you want to talk about anything we discussed or about how Walker can help your business customer experience, you can contact me here at steve.walker@walkerinformation.com or call me here in the U.S. +1 317-843-8890. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. We'd love to talk to you and learn more about what you're trying to accomplish with your CX program. Don't forget to subscribe to the CX Leader podcast. You can go to walkerinfo.com/podcast and you'll find links to iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and on our YouTube channel as well. Simply go to walkerinfo.tv to listen. Thanks to everybody who's been making the CX Leader podcast the place for CX leaders to improve their professionalism. The CX Leader podcast is a production of Walker. We're a business consulting firm that can help you make customer experience your greatest competitive advantage. Find out more at walkerinfo.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.